A journey in learning. The air was crisp, carrying with it the faint hum of conversations and the rustle of leaves underfoot. Among the crowd, a young student walked briskly, his head slightly bowed but his eyes alight with purpose. In his hand was a worn notebook, its pages filled with scribbles in two languages, his native tongue and the one he had yet to master. For as long as he could remember, the sounds of English had fascinated him. They were foreign yet familiar, a gateway to stories, ideas, and opportunities that seemed just out of reach. He had seen others use it fluently, weaving sentences with ease, and he longed for the day when he, too, could express himself in that way. But he knew it wouldn't be easy. Every new word felt like climbing a steep hill, and every sentence like crossing a turbulent stream. Yet, something deep within him pushed him forward, a desire to connect with the world beyond his own and to prove to himself that he could achieve what once seemed impossible. With each step, he silently promised himself, he would learn this language, not just as a tool for communication, but as a key to open doors he hadn't yet dreamed of. This was the beginning of his journey, a path filled with challenges, discoveries, and triumphs waiting to be written. A young student, eager to explore new worlds, decided to master the English language. He wasn't sure where to begin, but his determination drove him forward. He knew that learning a language meant more than memorizing words, it required immersion, patience, and practice. Starting small, the student began his journey with the basics. He borrowed a notebook and wrote down simple phrases he encountered daily, like "How are you?" and "Thank you." These words seemed like tiny bricks, but he knew they would eventually form the foundation of something bigger. One day, he came across a sign written in English. Curious, he looked up each word in a dictionary he had borrowed from his school. Understanding the sentence gave him a thrill, as if he'd uncovered a secret message. From then on, he carried the dictionary everywhere. Embracing stories. Books became his favorite teachers. He started with children's stories, their simple sentences and colorful illustrations guiding him gently. Over time, he graduated to short novels, then articles, and eventually poems. The rhythm of the poems, the imagery in the stories, they captivated him. When he stumbled on difficult words, he guessed their meanings from the context or jotted them down to search later. He learned that even if he didn't understand every single word, he could still grasp the overall meaning. Learning through listening. One evening, he discovered recordings of English conversations. At first, the voices seemed impossibly fast, their words tangled together like vines. He pressed replay again and again, picking out a word here, a phrase there. Slowly, the sounds began to make sense. He mimicked the accents, copying not just the words, but the way they were spoken. When he finally heard himself say, "I'd like some water, please," with confidence, he felt he was stepping into a new world. Practice makes progress. The student found someone who knew a little English and asked to practice speaking. It was awkward at first. He paused often, searching for the right words, but he never gave up. One day, during a casual conversation, he realized he had spoken an entire sentence without needing to stop. It wasn't perfect, but it was understandable. That moment felt like flying without wings. Writing his thoughts. To deepen his learning, he started a journal. Every day, he wrote a few sentences in English about his thoughts, dreams, or what he had learned. Some days, the sentences were short and simple. Other days, they stretched out like streams, flowing freely. His journal became a mirror of his progress. Looking back, he saw how far he had come and how much further he could go. Learning from mistakes. Mistakes were his best teachers. When someone corrected his grammar or pronunciation, he smiled and noted the correction. He realized that errors weren't failures, they were stepping stones. For the student, mistakes became the most valuable part of his learning process. At first, the fear of making errors in front of others was overwhelming. He worried that each mistake would be a setback, a sign that he wasn't good enough or that he would never truly master English. However, as time passed, he started to see things differently. He began to understand that mistakes weren't the end of the world, they were, in fact, essential to his growth. When someone corrected his grammar or pointed out a mispronunciation, he didn't feel embarrassed or discouraged. Instead, he took it as an opportunity to learn. He would smile, acknowledging the correction, and immediately jot it down in his notebook. To him, each correction represented a new piece of knowledge that he hadn't possessed before. It was as though every mistake was a clue in a puzzle, leading him closer to fluency. Through this process, he realized that mistakes were not failures, but stepping stones. Every error he made was a part of the journey, helping him understand the language more deeply and intimately. With each mistake, he discovered patterns, learned rules, and grew more confident in his ability to communicate. He understood that mastery wasn't about avoiding mistakes, but about using them as a foundation to build his skills. He embraced the idea that learning was a process, not an outcome. The path to fluency wasn't a straight line, it was filled with detours and obstacles, but each mistake made him stronger, wiser, and more capable. In this way, his mistakes became his best teachers, guiding him along the way and helping him realize that the journey itself was just as important as the destination. A new confidence. Months passed, and the student began to feel at ease with English. He could greet strangers, read instructions, and even watch videos without subtitles. The biggest reward wasn't just the knowledge, it was the confidence. Learning English had taught him more than a language, it had shown him that perseverance and curiosity could unlock any door. As months passed, the student's relationship with English evolved in ways he hadn't imagined. What started as a daunting challenge slowly transformed into something familiar and comforting. He began to notice subtle changes in his abilities. He could greet strangers without hesitation, speaking with more fluidity than before. Instructions that once felt like a foreign puzzle were now clear and comprehensible, whether they were on a product, a website, or even in a classroom. One of the most gratifying milestones came when he could watch videos in English without the need for subtitles. At first, the thought of understanding spoken English without the crutch of translation seemed impossible. But with persistent effort, listening to podcasts, watching movies, and reading along with content, the pieces of the language began to fit together. Words that had once sounded like a jumble now carried meaning, and the context helped him fill in the blanks. It wasn't just about recognizing individual words anymore, it was about grasping the essence of the conversation, understanding humor, emotion, and nuance, all in real time. However, the true reward wasn't just the growing knowledge of grammar, vocabulary, or syntax. The most significant change was the newfound confidence that blossomed within him. English had become more than just a tool for communication, it had transformed his perspective on what was possible. He no longer feared making mistakes or stumbling over words. His confidence stemmed not from perfection but from the realization that he could tackle anything, as long as he kept trying and remained open to learning. Through his journey with English, the student learned a powerful life lesson. Perseverance and curiosity were keys that could unlock not just language, but any challenge. He had started out uncertain, unsure if he could succeed, but now he was a person who believed in his ability to overcome obstacles and continue improving. The confidence he gained from learning English became a foundation for his growth in other areas of life, showing him that with persistence, any door could be opened, and any skill could be mastered. Though his journey wasn't over, he carried with him the tools to continue, a love for learning, a willingness to ask questions, and an understanding that progress is made one small step at a time. Though the student had made incredible progress in his language learning journey, he knew his path wasn't over. There was still much to explore and master, but by this point, he had acquired something far more valuable than just proficiency in English. He had developed a mindset that would carry him through the rest of his learning and beyond. One of the most important tools he carried was a genuine love for learning. At the beginning, learning English felt like a chore, something difficult that he had to get through. But over time, something had shifted. The process of learning became exciting, even enjoyable. He found joy in discovering new words, hearing how they sounded, and seeing how they fit into conversations. The challenge had turned into an adventure, and he started to look forward to each new lesson. This love for learning wasn't just limited to English, it spilled over into other areas of his life, making him more eager to explore new skills and knowledge. He also developed a willingness to ask questions. Early on, he had been shy about asking for help, thinking he should figure things out on his own. But as he progressed, he realized that asking questions wasn't a sign of weakness, it was a sign of strength and determination. Each question he asked brought him closer to understanding, and each answer opened a new door of possibility. He learned to embrace his curiosity and to seek answers without fear of looking foolish. The more questions he asked, the more confident he became in his ability to navigate any subject or challenge. Finally, he understood that progress is made one small step at a time. Looking back at his journey, he saw that success wasn't achieved in one giant leap. Instead, it was the result of consistent effort, small improvements, and incremental victories. Each new word he learned, each grammar rule he mastered, and each conversation he had was a step toward fluency. The student no longer focused on the overwhelming picture of perfection, he focused on the small, achievable goals that built up over time. This understanding helped him remain patient with himself, even during moments of frustration, knowing that every step, no matter how small, was a step forward. With these tools, his love for learning, his willingness to ask questions, and his understanding that progress is a gradual process, the student was ready to face any challenge. Whether it was improving his English further or learning something entirely new, he now had the mindset and the resilience to continue growing. He had learned that the journey itself was as valuable as the destination, and that the key to mastering any skill, including language, was persistence, curiosity, and patience.